Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to some and present to others my brother Frederick Murphy. Like I said, we had the privilege, and some of y'all as well, of meeting this young man at Jefferson African American Heritage Center on the last Town Film Festival by my man Lorenzo Dickerson. Shout out Lorenzo.
Shout out.
And so he debuted, amongst other things. We're going to get him to formally, and further introduce himself and the great work that he's doing when it comes to our media and uplifting our people and educating our people. But in particular, right now, he has an award-winning documentary, The American South as We Know It. The American South as We Know It explores the lives and experiences of African Americans during the Jim Crow era. The film depicts a time when racial tension was at its peak. The educators, historians, and brave everyday people featured in this documentary expressed their vested interest in creating a comprehensive narrative of what life was like for African Americans in the South. Frederick, how you doing, my brother?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Very blessed to be here. I appreciate you for bringing me on, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for joining us. So, again, give the people a little further background of you and what got you into this industry, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So first, I got to give a shout out to Lorenzo, man, with the Town Film Festival, man. It was great coming up for that. The crazy thing is when I first met Lorenzo. It was at the Slave Dwelling Conference, which was here in Charlottesville last year through the Slave Dwelling Project, which is a brother named Joe McGill. And what he does, he goes around and sleep in existing slave dwellings to bring awareness to them. A lot of times people put a lot of emphasis into the big house, right? The big houses that got all the glitz and the glamour. However, it does not discuss the people that made that happen, right?
Wait a minute, you said he sleeps inside the slave house?
Absolutely, sleeps inside different slave dwellings across the country, man. You'll be surprised. We're talking about East Coast. We're talking about the Midwest as well. Yes, slavery did exist in the Midwest. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So he sleeps in them there as well. And we were fortunate enough to have the conference here last year. And previous to that, I was searching African American history documentaries, and I came across the Coachman that Lorenzo did, and I'm like, this brother did all this with a phone. So I'm like, so I watched it, and I was able to get in contact with him, and we linked up at the Slave Dwelling Project conference last year at the University of Virginia, and we've stayed in contact ever since. And obviously the film was screened at the Town Film Festival and had a great time. So shout out to that brother, because that's probably, he's the reason why I'm here. You know what I'm saying? So I want to give a shout out to Lorenzo and all the great work he's doing here at the local community. But The American South as We Know It, man, it was released April the 13th, 2018, not too long ago. And, I'm blessed, man. It's been well received. I've been screening various different film festivals. Won the Urban Hollywood South Film Festival down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. For the best documentary. And this whole project came out the blue, man. I'm a therapist by trade. I'm an LPC, licensed professional counselor, but I am a historian at heart. When I realized how much propaganda was going on in school and the truth not being told as far as from the side of minorities and African Americans in this country, I was like, man, I got to take it upon myself to go out there and do something different, do something that's going to fulfill me, my family, as well as other generations that are going to be coming up behind me, so they can get through all this propaganda. Because when I used to, wake up in the morning and look at the face and see this beautiful brown skin that we all have, I'm like, what makes this so great? You know what I'm saying? And that information necessarily wasn't being given in school. So I took it upon myself to travel throughout the South for a year and a half. I'm talking Mississippi, I'm talking Virginia, Alabama, right in the thick of things, all red states. It wasn't nothing blue. It wasn't nothing blue but the sky. And that's when it wasn't raining. And so Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Virginia, Georgia, you name it, throughout the South, I traveled, and I interviewed individual specified experiences during Jim Crow. And on top of that, I interviewed some historians, and I wanted to interview some local civil rights leaders within their own communities who were kicking up dust, because every February we're stuck with having to hear about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. However, I don't know about y'all, but I get tired of the same story. You know what I'm saying? Those are the quote unquote safe Negroes, right? So I had to go down there and get in the thick of things, to where I would hear about how individuals were, what the things that they were dealing with, and kind of how they were maneuvering in these small towns. And I purposely sought out individuals that did not have the notoriety that a lot of people that we know with regards to the civil rights movement.
Who was Jim Crow?
Jim Crow's a set of laws, man. Jim Crow was a way of life back then to make sure that we could not achieve the things that people, that other people was able to achieve. That equality, that equity. You know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of people think of him as the person.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, they do.
They don't think of what action his name came behind. Like when people say Jordan,
Right.
Magic. You know what I'm saying? On the basketball court. I mean, it's a real thing. African American community. We on the court. And you say Magic, you know we talking about, or you say Lakers, you know you talking about a fast break. You talking about fadeaway jumper with Jordan.
Yep.
Skyhook with Kareem. But when people say Jim Crow, people need to understand what that actually means.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not somebody that's going to go to jail for all the stuff that was done during that time period. So, which is purposely designed. You know what I'm saying? It's systematic, and it's the same systematic things in which we're dealing with today.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to take it, Frederick. Because one thing I appreciate about you is how you bring the relevance to the table, and you can show how history is we're sort of doomed to repeat history, until we're knowledgeable about things that have happened, man. And so when I hear you talking about that, I mean, like a lot of that's relatable to what we're going through today. 'Cause a lot of the civil rights acts and things, are set to expire. Some have expired. Some have been, put into law. And so some people say that we don't need it anymore. Like, so out of your experiences and what you've learned, well, how do you reply to that? When people say, well, that was then. Now we're all one. We don't really need affirmative action. We don't really need, a civil rights bill, things of that sort.
Man, cut on the TV. Go to your Instagram page. Go to your Facebook page. Go to anything. I mean, and the thing is, now we have more resources and access to really see why we need those things put in place. If you're a person that's saying that, or if y'all know somebody that's saying that, make sure I'm not around that, brothers. Because that's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? If you look at what's going on in the world now and what has been going on in the world here, I'm 38. Oh, no, I'm 39. I'm 39. If you look at
that's how hard you've been working.
I know, right? But if you look at things that have happened, that have transcended in society, and now we really have a bird's eye view of it because of social media and the different resources, then you will be a fool to believe that these things don't need to be upheld and put into place. You know what I'm saying? Because like when I go around and I do talks, like I mentioned, I'm a therapist as well. And after I screen the documentary, I usually do a presentation titled "Utilizing Film to Better Understand Historical Trauma in the African American Community." Right. So with that, I talk about this generation's civil rights challenges and the violence and things like that. So for us, it may have been seeing Rodney King getting beat up, right? But for these younger kids, it could be it's most likely Tamir Rice. You know what I'm saying? It's Mike Brown. It's those type of things. So with that trauma and the things that have been happening, it's going to continue to be repeated until equity happens. You cannot stop historical trauma until equity happens, because you have to pass down and you have to educate to our young folks how they have to protect themselves based on the experiences that we've been seeing all over the news.
Appreciate that, my brother. Appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, we are speaking with Frederick D. Murphy, the director, the producer of the American South as We Know It, a documentary on DVD right now. And so we're going to take a quick break, Frederick, and then when we get back, we're going to dig a little deeper. We've been taking it easy on you so far, but you came all the way to Charlottesville.
I did.
So, so we're going to dig a little deeper when we get back, but y'all stay tuned. IMHO. Let me throw two news headlines at you to see how relatable they are to you and some of the things you may have learned making this documentary. One being the Wisconsin high school students. I don't know if y'all saw.
Yes.
But while the school board is saying that they're going to take action as far as educating families and kids about about racism and what's appropriate and not appropriate, there is no reprimand being put down on the students who took a class picture, for those that don't know, and they held up the white power salute, the Nazi salute,
the Heil Hitler.
the Heil Hitler salute. And so school board saying that's protected within their First Amendment rights. So brother Frederick, like what have you seen when it comes to First Amendment rights? Because even that, it's funny because it looks like even with our Constitution, depending on who you are, the rights apply to you.
But
other people, they don't.
It wasn't written for us. That's what
for sure.
I've said that many times.
Right.
Like on these shows that we've had, it's like when they start talking about the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
it wasn't meant for us, so that's why you're treated differently.
Sure.
Forget what somebody says to you. I'm talking about when the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
It's not written for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like we also talked about on how, you got to respect somebody's rights. If you want to be able to say what you want to say, then even if you don't like it, you got to allow other people their liberty to, to express their freedom of speech as well. But Frederick, I'm just curious about, even within this documentary, as far as finding, those kind of comparisons of people's voices being shut down. Because even to this day, it seems like when people of color want to start something and want to liberate themselves, there's laws that get brought up out of nowhere saying, well, no, this is why you can't do that, or this is why we got to shut this down. Yeah,
you get slapped on the hand. You know what I'm saying? It's like two things. Like with that brother, I read some of the things, and he was like, I put my headphones on to drown it out. Some of the stuff that they say, I would just put my headphones on to drown it out. Man, that's not allowing that brother to be empowered.
That's right.
And I blame that on the administrators, and I blame that on the teachers, because this ain't the first time that they've seen this type of behavior. You know what I'm saying? So what you are doing is empowering those kids that did do it to feel like they were comfortable enough to do it on that day on a picture that would be circulated, across the world. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of that information, a lot of that stuff, I put on the administrators that's there at their school, because this is not the first time that this has happened. And for that brother to say, I just put my earphones on, or I have put my earphones on just to drown it out, man, that's bullying in itself. And it's not just those students, it's the administration that's doing the exact same thing, because they allow the behavior going on. You know what I'm saying?
It's a private school, right?
Yeah, and it's a private school.
This is the one thing, because I have a child that I plan on sending to private school. And it's looked upon, like when we start talking about higher education, we look at that as being a white institution, or that's something for white people. So at that point, there are people that are going to look at it like, well, if you want to go to school there, you're going to be subjecting yourself to the way that they act, which is not cool. There's no denying. Subconsciously, majority of people look at Duke being a better institution than one of these black HBCUs.
And real quick on Duke, and not to interrupt, but real quick, I was working on a grant with Duke, and it was based on student resiliency. And just know that it was roughly around 55 years ago that Duke just admitted their first African American student on campus. 55.
Yeah, UVA ain't too far from that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but go ahead. I just wanted to bring that up.
55 in a day.
Right. No, you're right on point. Yeah, man. And people forget too that when it comes to the education system in general, like a lot of that, whether it's the prices, whether it's charter schools, private schools, if you look at the history of them, they mostly get started trying to control the population.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like to keep certain people in or out.
A very popular private school, I'm not going to call a name because I don't want nobody to be upset at us, but was started so that Caucasian people could not have to deal with integration.
Yeah.
Very popular school here in Charlesville.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Fred, you had something?
And you had mentioned how it relates to the documentary. I interviewed a brother in Mound Bayou by the name of Herman Johnson, Sr., and Herman Johnson is a brother that is very active in the community down in Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Mound Bayou, Mississippi was founded by former slaves of the brother of Jefferson Davis, huge Confederate soldier and leader down there. And he was in the military, and in the documentary he talked about getting off the bus in Memphis. And I'm from Tennessee, so shout out to my Tennessee folks. But getting off the bus in Memphis after serving his country, and he had his uniform on, and he talks about going to drink some water out the fountain, and the guy came from around the counter and said, "Boy, get away from there, you can't drink that water. That's white water." And he goes into detail, like just out of breath, like, here I am with my uniform on, sacrificing my life with all my comrades, thinking I did something good for this country, and then I come back and they tell me I can't drink white water. You know what I'm saying? And those are the type of things. This brother that's going to this school is getting his education, the one in Wisconsin, doing everything he's supposed to do, staying out of jail, staying out of trouble. I'm sure he's a bright kid, but yet when it's time to take pictures, you're subjected to that type of behavior by your peers, and no one's going to say anything about it. Yeah.
And we always have the group of us that try so hard to make a difference and want to take the high road. And a lot of people, want to point at, all right, if you want to see things change, get out and vote, change your legislation, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you then about this just past election.
Sure.
When you look at the voter suppression and discrimination that happened through that, compared to that same era that this documentary is about, man, I mean, like, how much has actually changed?
Not much has changed at all, man, and not much has changed at all, man. It's the same script, different cast. That's what we're faced with, and again, that's what we're going to continue to be faced with until equity is put in order. But the only way the equity is going to be put in order is if individuals shed their privilege. You have to literally shed your privilege in order for this to happen, meaning you can't rezone these schools last minute to try to make sure that everything stacks up in your favor. You can't just throw all these charter schools in place last minute and say that these brown kids can't go there. You know what I'm saying? But I tell you though, man, what I was most impressed by when I was traveling and doing these documentaries was, and these are things. Listen, I learned a lot of stuff during these documentaries. I'm not an expert in this, right? I'm a sponge. I'm just willing to learn, like all of us need to be. And when I was speaking with individuals down in Mississippi and also an individual from Boley, Oklahoma, which was these are all historically black towns, there was they were brothers and sisters on the outside, on the outskirts of these towns, loaded with guns, and white folks couldn't get in. These brothers and sisters were taking shifts, 24-hour shifts, making sure that white folks didn't get in. It was their own utopia. It was their safe haven. You know what I'm saying? They operated within there with their own stores, the pharmacies, et cetera, et cetera. Just like everywhere. You know what I'm saying? When you talk about the Vinegar Hill community that's here. That's
right.
These were viable communities that were surviving without integration, right? Like they were good. Yeah. But one of the things that stood out to me, and I don't think that a lot of people notice, is that these historically black towns, they really set up the parameters of who could enter and who could not enter. They wanted to keep toxicity out of these towns, and a lot of people don't know that these folks were ready to go to war and to protect their culture and to protect their land. But unfortunately, obviously, we know what's happened. These hostile takeovers such as gentrification. I call them hostile takeovers.
Right.
That's what they are.
Yeah, that actually made me think of Governor-elect Abrams down in Georgia. She had the Black Panther Party out there at her rallies. You see it?
Yeah.
Protecting her. You
But
know,
we're always looked at upon as being so much worse when things like the Ku Klux Klan and these guys that took over California and go into all these places aren't looked at as terrorists. Like it's crazy just to me. How they can judge something like that. We can say Black Lives Matter and come up on the FBI, CIA radar, but then somebody can ride down here with a 4-foot truck hollering the N-word out the road, and they just look at them like, well, don't say nothing, y'all, to cause controversy. Just let them do what they do. That's the First Amendment. It's crazy.
That guilt, man.
Yep.
Like, think about it.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what they have. Hey, so Frederick, you gonna hang out with us today, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna hang out a little bit longer, man.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang out a little bit longer.
All right, because we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and then and it was also, we definitely don't want to let you go. It's a good conversation, but want to make sure that you plug that documentary in the fashion that you want, and people know how to reach you, and you give them your parting shots on why this documentary is so powerful. Because of course we've seen it and we dig it, so that's why we got you here. But definitely want to make sure that that people know how to reach you and how to get that documentary. All right.
All right. Cool.
All right. So IMHO 101 Jams. So
who's coming up next?
Oh man, yeah, like I said, y'all don't want to miss a jam-packed show. We have my man Antoine Brinson of the AB Culinary School, right? And then of course we're gonna hit all the news headlines, and in that third hour we have B. Alexis as well with the alluring hairstyles, man. And that's just name a couple, right?
Yeah. You don't want to miss this. IMHO.
IMHO.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
101 Jams is a non-profit community radio station. It is our mission to educate, inform, and entertain our listeners with local and national news and events while providing you the best of classic and new hip-hop and R&B. The views expressed on 101 Jams belong to those expressing them and do not reflect the views or beliefs of 101 Jams, the board of directors, or its parent company, Air Mix Virginia. To find out more about how 101 Jams serves your community, visit our website, 101jamz.com, or facebook.com/101 Jams.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show on 101 Jams, your home for today's and classics, hip hop and R&B. Sir Charles in the building, and remember, y'all can hit us up. Please remember, any other insight, keep it coming. Positive or negative. I know Razor always say keep the hate to yourself.
No, that's DJ Almighty. I just be stealing his stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, when he out of town, I steal.
When he out of town, I got you.
Yeah, so once you play the disclaimer, I can do what I want to do.
Gotcha. All right, we good. Yeah, 434-422-9101, as well as on all your social media outlets and at Gmail. So, we just here to wrap up real quick with Brother Frederick Murphy, but he ain't got to go home, and he ain't got to get out of here either.
That's right.
By the way, so it's right. You family here now. IMHO, Seville welcomes you. So go ahead and keep, tell your wife keep spending the money in Seville. We appreciate that. But yeah, so Frederick, so go ahead, man, for the documentary. Once again, if you're just tuning in, The American South as We Know It. Great documentary, educational for the whole family. But let the folks know, man, how they can reach you, how they can get that, and your upcoming work.
Yeah, so on all social media outlets, except what's the one that only got a couple seconds and then it goes away?
Snapchat?
Yeah, I can't do Snapchat. It takes too much work.
We got enough of our history erased.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Hey,
exactly. I like that one too. But at History Before Us, and that's at History Before Us, just like it's spelled, just one word, of course, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And the website for the documentary is www.americansouthfilm.com. That's www.americansouthfilm.com. And the film could be purchased on Vimeo, as far as video on demand, as well as Amazon. I'm on Amazon as well as Vimeo. And then I also have the old school throwback hard copies, in which I gave everyone here a copy today.
I thought you were going to say VHS tape.
Yeah, I know, right? Beta. You really going back, right? That's really History Before Us, brother. But yeah, so on video on demand, I do have a code that's going on right now where you can purchase the documentary for $10. So what you do is when you go on AmericanSouthFilm.com, you go to VOD, which is video on demand. You go to Vimeo and you type in the code A South, and that's just how it's spelled, just how it sounds phonetically. The word A and then the word South. Oh, I'm sorry, the letter A and the word South.
Gotcha.
A South. And you put in that code and you will be able to redeem the documentary for $10. And with that, you can watch it on your phone, your iPad, the TV, everywhere. And that's on Vimeo.com. I'm sorry, that's on Vimeo via AmericanSouthFilm.com. As far as the other documentary that I'm working on to close out, recently I was just in Clarksville, Virginia, and there's a brother by the name of George Sizemore. And George Sizemore is an actual living miracle, man. It's not necessarily a miracle, but his father was a slave. His father was enslaved there in Clarksville, Virginia, by some Sizemores. And there was a book that was released a couple of weeks ago titled Uncle George and I. George Sizemore's family was enslaved by this white person named Bill Sizemore, and I was able to link up with both of them and get this on film for my next documentary titled The Other Side of the Coin, a reconciliation of sorts. Now, when we talk about reconciliations, for me personally, I'm talking reparations, and to be honest with you, that will bankrupt this country. Because I'm talking about free education, I'm talking about free health care, I'm talking about cash, I'm talking about land, I'm talking about any resource that's needed, it needs to be given with no cost, right? But we know for a fact that will bankrupt this country. So what I was looking at was some type of reconciliation amongst the races that we can, for one, acknowledge what it is that has happened, and for two, to continue empowering communities of color. So what I've done is I'm interviewing individuals that have African American descent to talk about what reconciliation means to them. I'm interviewing whites who may have been racist at one point in time and then changed their ideology and are now fighting for inclusion and equity, as well as some Native Americans. I'm also interviewing Native Americans, so we can all have this conversation about what reconciliation is. You know what I'm saying? So to have that conversation with Uncle George, the son of a slave, as well as Bill Sizemore, it was great. And one of the great things about Bill, man, he's worked for the Virginia Pilot for about 30 some odd years, and what he's doing is for some of the proceeds of that book, he's given it to Uncle George's family scholarship, so the kids are able to go to school, and have some money in their pockets. So that is a form of reconciliation for him, and I'm very excited about this upcoming project. But the American South, as we know it, man, it's been doing really good. I got a lot of screening dates coming up. I'm excited about how it turned out. And again, you can find it at www.americansouthfilm.com. And you can follow me any and everywhere, social media, at History Before Us, outside of Snapchat.
And I got to challenge you a little bit, because I don't think it necessarily has to bankrupt us, though. Because I feel like if you look at all of the wasteful spending, I mean, there's so much, more positive ways that we can spend our money.
And I got to challenge you back, Charles. I think it will bankrupt us, because they're only going to say, I'm going to allot this amount for you.
That's what they'll say.
Right. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah,
that's what they're going to do. They're not going to take away from buying a $15 million toilet.
Right.
Hey, Mr. Challenge.
Yeah. So Frederick, so right before we wrap up with you and go to a quick break, and like I said, y'all stay tuned, because we also in that building right now we have Mr. Antoine Brinson of Culinary Concepts. That's right, teaching life skills through the arts, through the culinary school arts. So stay tuned for that. But Frederick, though, for those listening, because when I heard you talking again, like we're listening as people who know how good your work is, know how great your work is. But for that person who's saying, but I've seen these kind of documentaries, I even know my history.
Yeah.
Why should I take my time out and get this one?
Because I made sure that I reached out to the quote unquote little people. You know what I'm saying? The people that may resemble someone that goes to a person's church. That janitor that would help clean up the building, that person that worked in the cafeteria, you know what I'm saying? That deacon, you know what I'm saying? That school administrator that loved to work with little brown kids, you know what I'm saying? So I made sure that it wasn't something that you would have access to already by Googling it. You know what I'm saying? You really have to want to see how in depth these people were in their local communities and how they were fire starters. And again, my whole point was to make sure that I interviewed lesser known individuals, because we got Malcolm X's and Martin Luther King's living amongst us today.
True that.
In these small communities. And we all know someone of that ilk. You know what I'm saying? And it's just making sure that we do our due diligence and going out researching different communities and making sure that we keep these stories alive, because the fact of the matter is we're the gatekeepers. If we don't keep it alive, then it dies out, which is what is probably the plan of the other
talking about the whole IMHO
I appreciate that. My man. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking with Frederick D. Murphy, the director and producer of the American South as we know it. Frederick, keep up the great work, man. Keep uplifting, educating our people so we can make it better.
Appreciate it, brother.